the way it works in finance is, as long as there's no rule outlawing something, it's fine, and the firms will a lot of the time do it as long as there's no explicit or express rule outlawing what it is they're doing. They get around those rules on a technicality, and that's really what the problem is with creative accounting and what's called creative compliance in law and in regulation. With broader rules that are less detailed, are more general in nature, more principles based, they tend to cover a much wider area of conduct. And what that does is it gives the regulator more flexibility with regards to dealing with misconduct. Now, with more principles based type rules, they tend to cover a wider range of things. And so it's easier for the regulator to bring in loads of different types of misconduct under those rules. It's easier for the rules to, the wider or the broader rules to cover a much wider range of misconduct.
And the argument runs that, well, if we have general principles like this, well, the law therefore ceases to be certain. And what we need is certainty. And so there's this big argument, oh, well, let's try and spell out all the little details. But of course, the law can never, particularly in a changing area where you use different names and slightly different products, the law can never keep up unless you use broad principled based approach to dealing with. That doesn't mean you don't have detail. You can also you need a mixture of both general principles and specific rules to deal with particular problems. A trust-based system doesn't need a lot of detailed rules, and in fact, trust to some degree drives out the need for that. In fact, general principles can be couched in a way that ultimately, mimic or a proxy for some of those trust-like ideas. And so we've gone too much. The pendulum has swung too much to a particular model of the corporation and corporate regulation, which we are at a time when it is possible. Seriously possible to try and redress that balance. At the end of the day, being seen as being ethical, being seen as a good corporate citizen, being seen as someone that has a good reputation, it's generally acknowledged by most of those who have an interest in being around for the longer term in business that these are important values to try and aspire to and maintain. And so ultimately, if you see your objectives in terms of long-term commitment to a particular enterprise, then you see the world very differently from the kind of short-termist approach that has tended to dominate thinking, particularly in relation to the finance sector for certainly the last 2 decades.